Familiar face. He has been here before. Former U.S. Senator, Rhode Island Governor, Mayor of Warwick, Lincoln Chafee. Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure, Kate. It's good to be back.
Big day, exciting day. Previous times that we've had you here in studio, we've talked about the potential of looking at running for governor again, but now it's shifted. Talk with us about looking to primary Sheldon Whitehouse in the Democratic primary for the U.S. Senate.
I was on this show about 3 weeks ago where I talked about the Yemen war vote, which is extending the authorization of force from the old 2001 authorization, which we gave, and I was there right after September 11th, to unlimited, unfettered war, and especially to President Trump. And I took issue with it then on your show here, and I think it's a big motivating factor. If Senator Whitehouse did not vote with Senator Sanders and Senator Mike Lee, a Republican from Utah, on that authorization extending to Donald Trump, to President Trump. Very, very bad vote. And I think in a Democratic primary, we should be talking about these types of issues. Not only that one, but his lack of opposition to the Burrillville power plant, despite all those speeches on climate change. Here's your opportunity to come out in opposition to the power plant proposed with natural gas, fracked natural gas up in Burrillville. And as Attorney General, he did oppose a power plant up there. So there's, that's a good issue. And also, of course, a big one for many Democrats in Rhode Island who supported Bernie Sanders for president in the Rhode Island presidential primary in 2016. In fact, Senator Sanders won almost every city and town in Rhode Island across the state. And when the roll was called for Rhode Island, it was 20 for Clinton, 12 for Sanders. All the superdelegates, including Senator Whitehouse, defied the wishes of Rhode Islanders. Rhode Island independents and Democrats voted in the primary, went down and voted for Senator Clinton, who then lost to Donald Trump, the most unelectable man in American history, in my opinion.
Have you been having any conversations with Bernie Sanders? Do you envision having any conversations? Yes,
I would hope so. I've certainly talked to his supporters here in Rhode Island, and they were the ones that first approached me. His supporters here in Rhode Island that got him that big win in Rhode Island across the state. North Providence, Johnston, Warren, South Kingstown, Warwick, Providence, you name it, Woonsocket, across all the rural, the urban, the suburban communities in Rhode Island, Sanders won them. And these people worked hard for him and are mad that when they called the roll in Rhode Island, it was 20 to 12 for Secretary Clinton. And they're mad at the superdelegates, and particularly Senator Whitehouse.
So you went through, some of the issues that you have concerns with Senator Whitehouse about. Do you envision this now in 18, as you just pointed out, kind of like this Sanders-Clinton-esque rematch in terms of where the Democratic Party is going?
Yes, I do. I think that debate should be carried on, and I think it's been a big mistake for the Democrats to ignore the fact that we nominated a flawed candidate, and they keep talking about Russian influence in the election. And they don't want to just look in the mirror and say, we nominated a flawed candidate. And I believe Senator Sanders would have beaten Donald Trump. There was a thirst for an outsider, an authentic outsider. And that's how Trump galvanized his support. President Trump galvanized his support. Senator Sanders had that energy, bumper stickers and lawn signs. And he would have, I believe, in this climate of wanting an outsider, won. And the Democratic Party should be looking at that mistake, and the media who all got behind Secretary Clinton, that mistake, instead of looking at Russian influence. The Russians didn't have any influence on the people in Wisconsin and Ohio and Pennsylvania and Florida, all those key states that Trump ended up winning.
And so you mentioned the Burrillville power plant, as we have reported in the past, and many have as well. Senator Whitehouse talking about climate change in Little Compton while there happened to be a key meeting up in Burrillville. I mean, can it be possible for someone to not take a stance in his position? He's been deferring to saying it's a state's issue, but yet he is, probably his top issue is that he says he's a climate change warrior, but yet refuses to weigh in on this one.
Yes, and he did as Attorney General. They tell me up there in Burrillville, they have the memory of a previously proposed power plant which he felt free to come out and oppose back then. So there's no consistency here.
And let's talk a little bit again about the war powers and again giving that vote to allow the president. And we talked a little bit about this when you were here. How much concern do you have when we talked about John Bolton?
Yes, exactly. Here we are giving war authorization, unfettered, unlimited war authorization, passed in 2001, and I was there for that. And it was on September 13th, 2 days after September 11th. The smoke was still coming out of the Pentagon, and we were given a 8x10 piece of paper with crossed off words on it. And this was the whereas, and therefore we give the president power to respond to the September 11th attacks. And that's being used all these years later. And now with John Bolton on the scene, what a mistake of a vote. And Senator Sanders, it was bipartisan. He had Mike Lee from Utah. He got other Republicans to vote for it. They got 44 votes, but they didn't get Senator Whitehouse. And that we should be talking about that in a Democratic primary, I believe. That's why I'm running.
So here we are having you in here. What's the reaction been today? What have you been hearing from folks?
I think people like to have choices, and unfortunately in red and blue states, in congressional races, it's kind of a foregone conclusion. If you're a Democrat in a blue state, you're going to win to go to Congress in particular, to the House or the Senate. In a red state, a Republican's going to win. So they're glad to have a primary. That's the feedback I'm getting, and have choices.
Speaking of primaries, speaking of choices, it's been a crazy political day here in Rhode Island. Matt Brown, who said he was eyeing a run for governor, potentially as an independent, said today he is in fact looking to primary Governor Gina Raimondo. Other Democrats already in that primary field. What was your thought with this move by Matt Brown?
Well, I think personally, since I was contemplating getting into a Democratic primary for Senate, that a good turnout is going to be good and good for democracy. A good, strong turnout, people listening to the issues, making up their mind who they want to support. I think it's healthy.
So here you are, made the news for U.S. Senate today. What's next? Putting the team together.
Yes. I've won 10 elections in Rhode Island, and they've all been competitive. I think I've been outspent in every one of them, and starting city council and going on to be mayor and senator and governor. And so I know what it takes. And it is a big job. It's a big job, and put together an organization. You have to raise some money and be competitive.
So as you said, you've been here before, getting off to the races, so to speak. Talk with us a little bit. Let's play maybe kind of a one-word name association. Republican side, Barbara Notter-Lillo.
I don't know him. He served in the House when I was governor. I don't know him. This is America, and I'm glad when people step up and run for office. I always support that, and I wish him well.
Bob Flanders.
Bob I respect very much, and in fact nominated him to a federal benchship. But as I told him to his face, and I know painfully from 2006, having that R next to your name going to Congress is just too much. I had 65% approval rating in 2006, and I lost just because they had that R next to my name. They do not, Rhode Islanders do not want to send anyone to a party that's anti-women's choice, that's anti-environment, that's pro-war, that gives all our tax money to the corporations and the wealthy. That's the Republican brand. And for Bob Flanders, it's just too difficult, as Brendan Doherty and others have found, to have that R next to your name. And I said that to his face.
When did you have this conversation with Bob?
At the Christmas party I believe you were at.
One of the Christmas festivities, and now having you back here moving ahead. Let's talk also a little bit, Senator, about what's taking place in Warwick. Mayor Avedijan is now heading to RIPTA. Who do we think is going to be the next mayor of Warwick?
Well, he did a great job, by the way, when I made him the chair of the board at RIPTA. And at that time, RIPTA was going through tremendous difficulties. And he came in, and we got the state police, Mr. Studley, to come in as the executive director, and we turned it around. And I'm very proud of that. Once again, one of those areas in state government when I was governor that we tackled the problem and solved it. And we did at RIPTA. And trouble with the unions, trouble with the cash payments in the room and covering up the cameras. And we came in and with Mayor Avedijan and Ray Studley turned it around. So I think it's a good appointment. What happens in Warwick now, we'll see who comes up and steps forward to run.
We'll see who steps forward. Let's see one name that's been tossed out. Joe Shikarchi. He's got a big war chest. Could he be in the mix?
He has said to me personally that he feels that he's in line to be speaker, and that he can, because he's majority leader, that's next in line, and so he's right, and he can continue to practice law and still be speaker. So I wouldn't
think he'd lean that way, maybe.
I think he'd lean that way. He can still have his business, and so it makes sense, common sense. Being mayor of Warwick is great fun, but I'm sure speaker, all the challenges would be enticing to Joe.
Well, of course, you had the political world abuzz earlier this week when you had said probably not running for governor. There was thought maybe you were looking at mayor of Warwick, but now, again, looking to take on Sheldon Whitehouse. Was it really that War Powers vote that really pushed you over the edge?
Yes, yes, and the support from the people that worked so hard for Senator Sanders here in Rhode Island and became delegates. Many of them went down and went to Philadelphia and saw firsthand, after all their hard work in Rhode Island, getting Senator Sanders winning the primary, to see Rhode Island 20-12 for Clinton. It just broke their hearts and angered them, understandably, after all that hard work. And then the War Powers vote. And also the Channel 12 poll came out in March and showed Senator Whitehouse's support was not very solid. It saved me the money from having to run that poll.
Speaking of polls, everyone's recalibrating theirs literally as we speak, with a whole new shakeup now moving ahead. Now, having been there from 2000 to 2006 and knowing sort of where the moderate, the basically evaporation of a moderate sort of sector, could you see this country being in the position that we're in now in 2018?
Well, I'm good at working across the aisle, and I think that's going to be a valuable talent. And in fact, even within my own Republican Party, it's kind of miraculous that I voted continually against the Bush agenda, whether it was on the tax cuts that favored the wealthy, which I voted against every single one of them, against the rollbacks, the environment, protecting endangered species. I was continually voting against the Bush administration, yet even with a Republican majority in Congress, I delivered for Rhode Island. I like to say, for those that remember that old rusting Jamestown Bridge that sat there for years and years next to the new one, it was my money that I got to take down the old bridge. That was $15 million that I advocated for and got. So I was able to not only vote against the Republican agenda, but get them to deliver for me in Rhode Island, which they did time and time again. Bike paths and keeping our military bases here. And so time and time again, I was able to deliver for them. So that ability to work across the aisle is very, very valuable, and it's a talent I think is in absolute dire need in Washington now.
And what do you envision nationally midterms shaping up to look like, looking at, again, the tone and tenor of the country as we're at here in the midterm of the Trump administration? What do you expect?
Well, as I said, talked about the Democrats and going after the Russians on this. I just don't think that that's playing well for the Democrats, and they seem to have the ability to shoot themselves in the foot over and over again. I do think it's going to be a good year for Democrats in 2018, and possibly take the House, maybe the Senate, and across the country, it's going to be a good wave from my perspective. And so we'll see. But let's focus on the real issues. I don't think the Russians had anything to do with what happened in Wisconsin and Ohio and Pennsylvania. It was a flawed candidate we nominated. Let's look in the mirror, admit our mistakes. The media should do the same. They were all in the bag for Secretary Clinton. I know, I lived through it. And admit your mistakes and let's try and fix them and have a great 2018 as a party.
And looking back towards D.C., let's talk a little bit about the Trump administration as well. Is he in real trouble?
He keeps being able to galvanize his base, and no matter what he does, and that's been true for ever since he entered the race as a candidate. And
do you think he's Teflon? Does he withstand?
Even the Comey is
Comey,
kind of
Mueller, everybody.
Yeah, backfiring on the Democrats in a way. And George Stephanopoulos, it just isn't working for the Democrats. And from my perspective, who I'm, of course, rooting for, and Trump seems to keep benefiting from these mistakes, from my perspective.
Does anyone seem to have come to the backing of Comey when he came out with his book?
I don't think so. It's too political, and he seems to be contradicting himself at times. I admire the man, but I don't think this performance has been his best moment.
So you talk about your time in the Senate working, pretty much to keep George W. Bush in check. How would you envision working with this administration?
You have to fight them tooth and nail, as I did with President Bush, when they deserve it. And with President Trump, those rare times like where he's right, in North Korea might be one, where you're trying to put down the guns, put down the nuclear weapons, put down the vitriol, and try and have a peaceful world. There are times when you have to say they're doing a good job.
Okay, well, we're going to be keeping an eye on you moving forward with the news today. Looking to primary U.S. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. There's going to be lots to come. So hitting the campaign trail, what can we expect from you next?
You have to work hard, Kate. Nothing's given to you. And you just have to wear out the shoe leather and outwork your opponent. I've always been able to do that. And Rhode Island's a retail state. They want to see you. They want to shake your hand. They want to hear your issues that you care about, hear your passion, and let the chips fall where they may after that. But it all starts with hard work.
Starts with hard work. Well, I appreciate your taking the time to come here to talk with us once again at GoLocal Live at the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center.
My
Senator
pleasure.
Lincoln Chafee,
Thanks
so
Kate.
much. We'll talk
Thanks
soon.
very much.
I'll let
Thank
you
you.
go around the corner. And that just about wraps up another day here downtown at GoLocal in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. 2 o'clock kicked off in the Alex and Ani Lounge with Brianna White. Great performance. If you didn't catch it, be sure to do so on Facebook. We'll have it up tomorrow as well. 3 o'clock, The Taste with Rick Simone, Mexican dining, and Cinco de Mayo next week on a Saturday. So he ran through some great opportunities, some great looking dishes. Can still smell it here in the studio. And of course, 4 o'clock, news and politics. We had a full show for you, talking about the Fane Tower, talking about Mental Health Awareness Month, talking about the YWCA of Rhode Island's event tomorrow with Get Out, a screening here in Providence to talk about the national effort Stand Against Racism. And Lincoln Chafee, appreciate him taking the time to come back in here as he is going to take on Sheldon Whitehouse in the Democratic primary for U.S. Senator. That just wraps up another day here. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow up at the Rhode Island State House once again and back in studio. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel.